Tonight, dangerous wildfires burning in the east and west. The Trump transition, who is not joining his administration, and a deadly shooting mars a college homecoming. We begin with the fires. Dry conditions are fueling a blaze that's burning out of control outside New York City. One first responder was killed and dozens of structures are threatened. Air quality alerts are now in effect. In Southern California, the mountain fire has already burned more than 30 square miles outside Los Angeles. Plant roots are burning underground and threatening new fires. Much needed rain for the Northeast, but will it be enough to end the drought? Our weather team is following it all. Also tonight, President-elect Donald Trump is now projected to win Arizona, completing his sweep of all 7 battleground states. And Trump now says 2 key figures from his first term, Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo, will not be joining him for his second. A FEMA supervisor is fired for reportedly telling hurricane responders to stay away from homes with Trump signs. The agency's head calls it a clear violation of its core values. Graphic video shows people running for cover as gunfire mars a homecoming celebration at Tuskegee University in Alabama. 1 person was killed and at least a dozen were wounded. Russia and Ukraine launch a flurry of drones, the heaviest attacks of the war. The Kremlin says it sees positive signs from the president-elect on Ukraine. Could this mean the end to U.S. aid to Ukraine's government? A rescue on the high seas. Dramatic video shows a Disney cruise ship saving 4 people on a sinking catamaran hundreds of miles from Bermuda. A plane carrying a top 25 college basketball team is forced to turn around after a fight breaks out between 2 players. What happened next? Britain's Princess Kate returns to royal duties along with King Charles. Both have been treated for cancer. And tributes are pouring in for a beloved pet who became more than just one man's best friend.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday. I'm Lindsay Davis. Several developing stories. President-elect Trump announces who will not be serving in his upcoming administration. A deadly mass shooting shatters homecoming at one Alabama university. But we do begin with the wildfires burning on both coasts tonight. Here in the Northeast, an unprecedented stretch of dry weather is fueling fires outside New York City, and they are now deadly. This weekend, an 18-year-old New York Parks employee died battling a blaze near the New Jersey border. The fires created a haze over parts of the region and multiple air quality alerts. And in the west, Southern California's mountain fire has already burned through 30 square miles and destroyed more than 130 structures. Firefighters are struggling to get the upper hand. ABC's Morgan Norwood leads us off with the latest.
Tonight, firefighters in New York and New Jersey racing to put out a dangerous wildfire that's already claimed at least 1 life. The Jennings Creek fire burning in a rural area about 35 miles northwest of New York City. The 3,000-acre blaze, 0% contained and threatening more than 24 structures. Conditions, tender dry, and residents like Doug Jones on edge.
With the dryness, I'm concerned about embers flying over into my house.
Families like Joseph Toomey's preparing in case they need to evacuate.
My wife and I packed up some bags for ourselves and our kids in case we get that order. Everything's kind of ready in the car.
And tragically, officials say 18-year-old Daryl Vasquez, a New York State Parks and Recreation aide, was killed battling the fire on Saturday.
It's heartbreaking. It's very unfortunate. Wildland firefighting is one of the most dangerous jobs someone can have.
And in the west, the mountain fire scorching more than 30 square miles west of Los Angeles since Wednesday. The fire's rapid spread fueled by what was the strongest Santa Ana wind event of the year, destroying more than 130 structures. Our Jacqueline Lee is with firefighters battling hotspots in Camarillo.
We're still finding hotspots in and amongst the root systems and the homes.
Plant roots still burning underground, posing a threat.
How long can a fire burn underground until it reemerges?
So it can burn up for days. We can still find hot spots and smoldering embers and hot material for a couple days.
Back in the Northeast, the smoke from the Jennings Creek fire seen for miles and blanketing New York City. Officials issuing an air quality alert and urging people to limit time outdoors.
And Lindsay, even with the rain in the forecast, fire officials tell me here in New Jersey, they worry that rain won't be enough to help knock down the flames. Still, there are hundreds of firefighters on the ground. They are still working as we speak around the clock, and it could take days before they get this fire under control, Lindsay.
All right, Morgan, our thanks to you. The region, of course, desperately in need of rain. Let's bring in ABC News meteorologist Somara Theodore. Somara, when could we see some relief?
Well, actually, Lindsay, right now, taking a look at the radar, we are seeing some light rain throughout parts of the northeast. Now, the heaviest of the rain is anticipated overnight. This rain moves in just as quickly as it arrived. It will leave. We are anticipating that to move out around 7 a.m. during the morning commute for much of the I-95 corridor, and then the dry weather returns. While we need the rain, it's not a significant amount of rain. Anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch is anticipated with this round. Therefore, the drought continues. We have an exceptional drought for places like West Virginia and Ohio. Southern New Jersey is under an extreme drought, and they haven't seen that in about 22 years. The fire weather risk will continue to remain elevated on the East Coast in the coming days. We're also monitoring the West Coast, where the Santa Ana winds are anticipated to pick up at the top of this week. Lindsay?
All right, not the conditions those firefighters need. Samara, thank you. Now to the Trump transition. The president-elect announced this weekend that former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley would not be part of the White House. Trump is now at his Florida home, where security has been increased. Officers are now patrolling in boats. What we're learning about the new administration's priorities. Here's ABC's White House correspondent MaryAlice Parks.
With Donald Trump now projected to win the state of Arizona, the president-elect tonight sweeping all 7 battleground states in a commanding 312 electoral college victory as Trump's transition team ramps up plans to fill out his cabinet. Trump announcing 2 former officials who will definitely not be returning: his former UN ambassador Nikki Haley and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. They both endorsed Trump, but were also critical of his leadership, Haley even running against him. Both also wanted to keep U.S. support of Ukraine in its war against Russia. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says President Biden will use all resources available before he exits office.
President Biden will have the opportunity over the next 70 days to make the case to the Congress and to the incoming administration that the United States should not walk away from Ukraine, that walking away from Ukraine means more instability in Europe.
Trump tonight also weighing in the race for Senate Majority Leader, demanding those Republicans seeking the top post change how the Senate does business to give him more power to make appointments during a recess without Senate approval. After Trump's resounding win, Democrats face an identity crisis. Senator Bernie Sanders arguing the party did not do enough to speak to the economic hardship felt by so many voters.
Why aren't we saying, yes, health care is a human right. We're going to take on the insurance companies and the drug companies. These are, without exception, popular ideas that Democrats, Republicans, and independents support.
Now, President-elect Trump is scheduled to meet with President Biden in the Oval Office here Wednesday. Biden promising to help Trump with a smooth transition, though, of course, Trump did not do the same 4 years ago. Lindsay?
MaryAlice from the White House, thanks so much. FEMA is investigating a former employee for what it calls reprehensible actions. The agency says a supervisor was fired after telling her team that was helping hurricane victims not to go to homes with Trump signs. ABC's Perry Russom has those details.
Tonight, a federal investigation at FEMA after the agency fired a supervisor for what's being called a clear violation of FEMA's core values and principles to help people regardless of their political affiliation. FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell says the unnamed supervisor ran a survivor assistance team and told her workers not to go to homes with yard signs supporting President-elect Donald Trump.
I think we're going to have a lot of impacts and people that are going to need our help, sir.
Criswell is not naming the supervisor, nor saying when or where the incident happened. But Governor Ron DeSantis says it was in Florida, calling it targeted discrimination. 2 major hurricanes hitting Florida this fall, including Hurricane Milton. Category 3 storm killing at least 16 people in Florida early last month. On the campaign trail, Trump casting doubt over FEMA's integrity after Hurricane Helene.
They're getting no help from our federal government because they have no money, because their money's been spent on people that should not be in our country.
Criswell denying Trump's claim.
It's frankly ridiculous and just plain false. This kind of rhetoric is not helpful to people. You know, it's really a shame that we're putting politics ahead of helping people.
Criswell is calling the supervisor's actions reprehensible. She is also not saying whether or not the workers did what they were told to do. and Skip Holmes. Lindsay?
Perry, thank you. Authorities in Alabama are appealing to the public for help as they try to determine who's responsible for a deadly mass shooting at Tuskegee University. At least one person was killed, more than a dozen were injured. It happened during a celebration of the school's 100th homecoming. And a warning, the video you're about to see does show the gunfire ringing out. The latest now from ABC's Faith Abube.
Tonight, young people frantically telling each other to get down. Get out, get out, get out, get out. You can hear the gunfire ringing out around them. The terrifying scene unfolding on the Tuskegee University campus in Alabama overnight.
Macon County request a visual aid from us. They're on the west side of Tuskegee campus. Unknown description of any shooters.
It was homecoming weekend at the historically black university.
While other officers were assisting the medical triage of it, we had to exercise caution because we didn't know if the shooter was still on the scene.
12 injured by gunfire, 16 hurt in total, including students. An 18-year-old who was not a student did not survive.
Homecoming was supposed to be an enjoyable time, enjoyable place here at Tuskegee University. And for something like this to happen, people are disappointed. I'm disappointed. I'm sad, I'm disappointed, and really confused about why somebody would do something like this.
Late today, authorities announcing they've made an arrest in connection with the shooting.
And Lindsay, here on campus, grief counselors have been made available to students. In the meantime, the university has announced classes on Monday have been canceled as investigators continue processing evidence. Lindsay.
Faith Abube for us. Thank you. An update now on the monkeys that escaped Wednesday from a research lab in South Carolina. Officials there say at least 25 have been recaptured. More than a dozen others remain on the loose. Many of them have been spotted just over the lab's fence. The monkeys are all very young and have never been tested. Police insists there is no threat to public health. Tonight, the Kremlin is signaling support for President-elect Trump. A spokesperson says signals are positive, noting at least he speaks about peace, saying it favorably distinguishes him from President Biden. The comments come as sources say that Russia has massed 50,000 troops for a counteroffensive against Ukraine, and both are escalating their drone attacks. Here's ABC's Inez de la Quatara.
Tonight, Ukraine and Russia trading massive drone strikes as Ukrainian military sources say 50,000 troops, mostly Russian and some North Korean, amass in western Russia for an expected counteroffensive against Ukraine. Ukrainian soldiers currently hold territory in Russia's Kursk region and are already under pressure from Russian military. Moscow seeing the biggest drone strike since the start of the war. 2 airports there temporarily closing. Russia saying 84 Ukrainian drones were sent over Russian skies, claiming all were shot down or suppressed. 5 people were injured. 4 homes caught fire. The head of the United Kingdom's armed forces telling the BBC that Russia is paying an extraordinary price for the war in Ukraine, both in terms of manpower and with its economy, saying Russia allegedly is seeing 1,500 dead or injured every single day.
The longer the war goes on for Russia, the more difficult it is.
Russia also sending a record 145 drones into Ukraine, according to Ukrainian officials. At least 1 drone striking a home and injuring 2 people. Firefighters in Odessa seen battling the flames in the aftermath of that strike. This neighborhood left in shambles. This amid questions about what could be next for Ukraine. Throughout his campaign, President-elect Trump vowed to immediately end the war without saying how he would do it.
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in 1 day, 24 hours. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together.
The Kremlin today saying signals are positive regarding Trump's views on the war and that his messaging about peace favorably distinguishes him from the incumbent administration.
And Lindsay, the Biden administration said on Friday that aid will continue to flow to Ukraine through the end of their term on January 20th. But what happens after that is anyone's guess. Lindsay?
A lot of uncertainty in Ukraine. Inez, thank you. Overnight, American forces targeted Houthi-backed rebel facilities in Yemen. The Iranian-backed group has claimed responsibility for multiple attacks on commercial shipping in the Middle East region. ABC's Britt Clennett joins us now from Tel Aviv. Britt, what are you learning about the operation?
Lindsay, tonight the U.S. once again striking Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. A U.S. defense official telling ABC News U.S. forces carried out multiple airstrikes on Houthi arms storage facilities, going after weapons used to attack military and civilian vessels in the Red Sea. The region is still very much in crisis. Today, Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon killing 23 people, including 7 children. And Qatar now suspending its role as a mediator in talks between Israel and Hamas. U.S. officials telling ABC News Qatar also has taken steps to expel Hamas from Doha at their request. It's another worrying setback for hostage families and for any hopes of an end to the fighting in Gaza. 49 killed in the Strip since dawn today. Lindsay.
Another violent day there, Britt. Thank you. And we're learning more about the mid-air brawl between 2 players on the Auburn University men's basketball team. Sources tell ESPN reserve players Jaquie Howard and Jakeem Hudson got into a scuffle just after the team plane took off for Houston on Friday. It was serious enough that the pilots called the tower and returned to the airport.
The flight deck is secure. The threat level is contained for the moment. We just had, police on the ground, and we had 2 players that got into physical altercation, clothes were ripped, and 1 bloody player.
The 2 players involved were left behind when the flight resumed. Details are just coming in about a daring rescue on the high seas involving one of our own. The Coast Guard says the Disney Treasure cruise ship saved 4 people on a sinking catamaran about 230 miles from the coast of Bermuda. Officials contacted the Treasure asking it to speed to the vessel in distress. Treasure was about 80 miles away at the time. The ship launched one of its small boats, plucking everyone to safety. Treasure was making its first transatlantic crossing. It is owned by Disney, the parent company of ABC News. And there's so much more ahead here on World News Tonight this Sunday. Britain's Princess Kate returns to royal duties, and special delivery, the holiday tradition, now in its 93rd year. Next tonight, NASCAR fans are mourning Hall of Fame driver Bobby Allison, who died Saturday at home in North Carolina. Allison won more than 80 races in his career, including the Daytona 500 3 times. His fist fight there with Cale Yarborough in 1979 is said to have put NASCAR on the map. Bobby Allison was 86 years old. We also want to note the passing of pioneering dance legend Judith Jamison. She was known for her graceful stage presence and unusually tall for a dancer at 5'10". Jamison became an international star in the 1960s when she joined the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. She later became its artistic director. Judith Jamison died Saturday after a brief illness. She was 81 years old. When we come back, Britain's Princess Kate is back in the spotlight. Her return to royal duties is next. To the index now, Britain's Princess Catherine has made a significant return to royal duties. Kate joined the King, Prince William, and others for the annual Remembrance Sunday service in London. Queen Camilla was not there. She's suffering from a chest infection. On Saturday, the princess attended a festival of remembrance with other senior royals. It is the first time since she announced her cancer diagnosis that she has carried out 2 consecutive days of public events. And a sign of the season here in New York City, a 74-foot-tall Norway spruce arrived Saturday at Rockefeller Center. It was driven all the way from West Stockbridge, Massachusetts, 140 miles. Over the next few weeks, the tree will be decked out with 50,000 lights in time for the lighting on December 4th. When we come back, a tribute to Ben, a companion who became more than just one man's best friend. Finally tonight, the tale of a loyal companion who became a national treasure.
With those puppy dog eyes and a simple wag of his tail, he became a beloved fixture of college football.
There he is.
A golden retriever by breed, but on ESPN's College Game Day, he was known simply as Ben. Often right at his devoted owner's side, ESPN football analyst Kirk Herbstreit. More than man's best friend, the Rose Bowl named him its chief happiness officer, which might explain why Kirk's sadness was pronounced this week as he announced Ben's passing due to cancer. Posting on X, "This is really hard to write, but so many of you have loved and cared about Ben that I wanted to let you know." Ben's passing at 10 years old prompted an outpouring of support from fans on social media. This one on X reading, "Dogs are family. Dogs are best friends. America will remember Ben as a legend. He made so many people happy." Overcome with emotion yesterday, Herbstreit was unable to talk. as a video tribute to Ben he narrated was introduced.
Dogs are known as man's best friend. But what do you call a dog that becomes a nation's best friend? You call him Ben. Ben wasn't out here to become a social media star, but he became one just by being himself. Dogs' only flaw as a species is they don't live long enough, but the warmth they give us, that never goes away. This man's best friend, who became America's best friend.
Thanks so much for watching. I'm Lindsay Davis. David Muir back here tomorrow. Until then, good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.